these are classes, so
Oh, I know.
they need vents. Sitting down here.
I know, I'm the same way.
It was 6 o'clock. On July 21st, 2020, and the Billerica Historical Preservation Commission is officially in session. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have a motion to adopt the agenda for this evening.
A motion to adopt?
Okay, we have a motion, second. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. Have you all had a chance to read the minutes from
Yeah.
the, okay? Any corrections or additions to the minutes? No. Motion to accept the minutes? Okay, we have a motion to accept?
I second, yes.
Second, okay. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay. We have public comment, and I wanted to, before Ron and Janet get into all of this, Ron and I guess Tom and I received an email from Matthew this morning, and I invited him to come today, and he said that he would have loved to have come, but he will come another time. But I wanted to read his email because I think that it was really important. This is what he sent to us this morning. And I'm going to do what they do at City Council. Gil said it's okay to take it off when you're on the microphone. So, you may not recall, but last spring when Council approved the Billerica Historic Sites, I asked whether the bus depot where the Freedom Riders stopped would be eligible for designation. My recollection is that there was uncertainty about the location of the bus depot. Over the weekend, I discovered this video by Mr. Charles Hudson memorializing the placing of the historic marker at the bus depot site. The video features Representative John Lewis at the marker's designation ceremony, and the latter half of the video shows Representative Lewis and other dignitaries going inside the bus depot, now flooring store. And you can see the signage for the bus depot inside, and he's also sent us the link. With this information, I was hoping if the bus depot meets the criteria that the City and Historic Preservation Commission would consider the designation of the former bus depot as a historic site. Please let me know if you have any other questions. So I wrote him back, and I think I also took to you as well. And what I said is that Matthew, according to the book Why Old Places Matter, which all of us heard at the conference that we had last year, that a site can be declared historic. The author of this book is from Georgia. He's also had Dr. Ann Cleary on it as well. And what I told him is that I had the privilege of interviewing several citizens for a future book on Voices from the Past. And most of the people I interviewed told me the exact same thing that Matthew did. I have argued that we should state the following: we are Billerica, a pioneer city, because there's so much to know about Billerica being a pioneer in the past and so many possibilities that make us a pioneer for the future. The other thing that I added to another email for him was that I was also told that as the Freedom Bus went through, they also refueled at Butterball. And so we know that Eisenhower, before he was president, came through on that same road. And knowing that the Freedom Bus came through before they hit Alabama, I think was really important and a really significant part of who we are, who we were, and who we can be. And so I wanted you to know that. I'd asked Matt if he would want to come, and he sent me back an email and said he would love to, but he will certainly want to come next time, but he'll pick it up probably on a video later on. So I at least wanted to give you that because I had asked him to do it during public comment. Okay?
And if I could just add to that for 1 second, obviously, I mean, if it is something that where we have enough information to back up any of our claims for our designation, then, and it meets the 50-year criteria and all the other criteria for designating a property, then we would want to, of course, want to do that. I would imagine the commission would probably want to designate that building historic. So we're talking about specifically for the address is 106 South Carroll Road. It's currently a floor decor. I think it's called Decor Flooring, just right across the street here. So that if we have the backup information, like we've talked about plenty of times before, like it's hard getting photos sometimes. It's hard getting concrete information if it's not. It's usually oral history or something of that matter, but I would have to document it. So
I think part of that Coca-Cola sign is still on the inside of the store,
that's what Matt indicated. Yeah.
Yeah.
which
that
I
it
think
is.
is still on some of the historical pictures too.
Mhm,
So
it
that
is.
would kind of,
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, from my understanding, it's not the original building.
Oh, really?
If you, in the Sanborn map of 1932, you see how the building's positioned a different way instead of how it is now. They had redone it. And back 6 or 7 years ago, when I went to an HPC meeting, Ms. Cleary was over it. And they were talking about receiving grants at
Right.
that time for that particular area. And they couldn't receive it because they had done tore down the building with the iguana on it.
The building with what?
With the iguana on it? There's
Yeah,
a big old painted iguana on the side of the building.
yeah,
It's where the parking lot is now.
Oh, okay.
yeah. And that's right. Now, Robert Wilson was in touch with me for a number of months because he's doing a book on the Coca-Cola sign. And I put him in touch with the man who painted that one, who lives in Carrollton. And so I don't know what he's done from there. But yes, we did verify the fact that that was not the original building.
I mean, but it's still old, but I'm just letting y'all know it's not.
It's going to be rough to. I mean, the building definitely does look old. I just don't. I mean, we would have to. I'll check the Carroll County tax records to see how old the building actually really is. But there's been some changes to it also, doors and windows, as you can imagine, which isn't too bad. But
There
you know,
is one photo. Pawn shop beside the pawn shop over there by the, there's a restaurant. Over there by the school. You go into the school and there's like a whole new, where the old patrol station used to be, now there's like a new
Oh, the
Oh,
new mall
yeah,
behind
yeah.
pawn
Jefferson.
shop there.
Yeah,
And the owners of that pawn shop used to own the pawn shop that used to be the iguana.
yeah,
And they have an old picture that's behind the counter.
yeah.
but not of the outside. Or it is
Yeah.
of the outside.
Of the
Oh,
outside.
okay, I understand. Well, that's great. I mean,
connect the dots somehow.
it's one photo, but I don't know how they'll feel about one. But at least we know there is one. That's the
Yeah.
important part, right?
Well, we're going to remain positive. Okay. Reports of officers, board members, or standing committees, anybody?
I can't hear
Okay.
Over there,
you. He can't hear you.
are we
Oh.
voting?
No, I said reports of officers on the agenda,
Okay, I don't have anything.
or anybody else. Okay.
Staff updates.
You're on. Alan.
Okay. Not too many updates. There's still no applications that have been submitted for this board. There was an application that was a question if it would need to come to the commission, which was a banner, a temporary banner. I was telling Dr. Mims that I'm going to be looking in our design guidelines to see if we even see temporary things like that, temporary banners, being that they can only have them up to, I think it's 60 days total for the year. Is it 60 or 120? I can't remember now, but it's 120. Yeah, right. Two times a year, non-consecutively, 60 days maximum. But that wouldn't come to us anyway, being that it's on the Bankhead Highway side, which hasn't been designated yet. So, other than that, the only other update that I have is what comes after tonight with this pre-application. So that will be sent off to the state sometime next week or the week after, one of the two, and we will we'll have to move forward with a local designation because again, it's only a pre-application. It's not even the actual application. So I would want to move together with a local designation and the national designation at one time. and then we'll finally be able to see, once the council at least approves the local designation, then we can start reviewing applications right after that. We don't have to wait for Washington or the state to get their stuff together. So that's my only updates.
Thank you. And it's really, really important. And again, I sent all of you the email that I got today from the Georgia Trust. But it was just so sad that they had a fire, and they had just 4 months before sold that building to be restored. And I was looking forward to seeing it, but it got hit by lightning. And they had just put a brand new roof on it, and it's gone. So it's really important that I think we understand.
You may want to move closer to your mic.
Yeah. Hard to tell, hard to
Okay,
hear.
I think that it's really important that we understand how important the commission is working along with Ron and Zoning and Planning and Janet with Main Street, because we do have so many buildings and we have the ability. Ron told me this morning you've got about 5 or 6 grants to look at. I know that Chris has got one. I was taking a look at some of the others, and I honestly believe that people are saying not in my lifetime. Well, when I came to West Georgia, they told me it wasn't going to become a university in my lifetime either. It only took a couple of years. So I think that if it's possible for us to have all these grants, even though they cover some different aspect of it, at least it's bringing in more money to get something done faster. And so I think that, that's important. And that's going to be leading up to what I'm asking them to do. Ron and Janet did a presentation at our Lions Club meeting last month, and I thought it was awesome. It really gave me a chance to understand exactly what it was, because we know that they had a grant, but we didn't know, or I didn't know at least, the extent of it until they actually presented their presentation to us. So you're up.
Yeah.
And if you can't see their thing and you want to, you can sit down there to see it better if you don't want to turn around.
Yeah. I'd like to introduce Janet, my sidekick, or I don't know if I'm her sidekick. I'm not sure.
I think most of you guys know me. I'm Janet Shumley, the Main Street Manager for the City of Villarica. I'm going to change this up a little bit. I'm tall. So, I think it was about a year ago, I took Ron and Tom with me, the City Manager, to the Department of Community Affairs for an education on the Rural Zone grant, because I knew at the time that population-wise we're about to eclipse 15,000, and so when we were applying for it, I knew if we didn't apply for it in 19, there was not going to be another opportunity, because we were, again, pretty close to 15,000. I think we came within 25 people of being not being able to apply. So in October of 2019, we were awarded the Rural Zone grant with 6 other cities. So I'm pretty proud of that, because it's hard to get, and Ron can tell you all the research and information. I think the box that he ended up sending to the DCA cost him a ton of money, because it was so expensive, all the stuff they require to get it. So we were one of 6 cities awarded the Rural Zone grant. So we're pretty proud of that and all the hard work, and I could not have done it. Ron and I are now partners in crime with this, because we feel like it's really important for our city. I say to people all the time, when the state government gives you money, grant money, don't turn it away. It's free money, right? So we need to, in the next 5 years, it's a 5-year designation grant, to take advantage of that. It's going to be very important for the downtown business owners to get involved, and also the people that rent from them, because there's money out there and incentives out there for the next 5 years. And even if you come in, in 2022, you still have, they're going to give you those 5 years, right? So even if you come in the last year, you're going to have time to make that work for you. So Ron will present the next part of our presentation.
That's basically just a growth stimulation package, right? Okay. That's what, out of those requirements, all I read, that 15,000 is what I was kind of questioning.
Yeah, we were close.
Really? We're well over now, though, right?
Correct. So if we would have applied for it this year,
You wouldn't have got it. Wow.
Right.
Cool.
And, Dr. Mims, you did mention you wanted the commission to sit out here so they can see it and they're not breaking their necks.
Because they're lighter.
we got about 50
I'm
slides.
gonna take this and write notes.
All right, so rural zone is an acronym for Revitalizing Underdeveloped Rural Areas Legislation. So, as Janet indicated before, we were there's only a handful of communities that were designated. I think it was 6 or 7 communities, and we applied for this already previously. I believe it was in 2018, and we were not awarded it. So we worked really, really hard for this year, being that we knew that it was going to be the last year that we could apply. So this was signed into law in 2017, and there's a total of 25 designated cities now. So it's a 5-year designation, as Janet indicated, and the designation period started January 1st and it goes until 2024. Any eligible business in downtown can take advantage of the program. So that, and there's a map in here as well that you'll be able to see the boundaries of that. Cities and counties must have a population of under 15,000 in order to be eligible, and it must have a concentration of historic buildings that are at least 50 years old. We had to prove economic distress and blight in the downtown area, vacancy, and that was not very hard to do with Wilson Street, with West Wilson being, a lot of that being vacant, and with that area having blight in the alleyways back there. They're very unattractive, so we got a lot of photos of that. Just went around town trying to see what was falling apart. That's how we usually have to do it. And our last eligibility, or one of our other eligibility requirements, was to stay compliant with our state local finance reporting requirements. And the last 2 was we had to do a feasibility study, and a marketing analysis. We did both, not just one. And so that identified our market. It identified our immediate market, 1, 5, and I think it's like a 1, 5, and 10 mile radius by walking and by driving. And that gave us our market, how much per capita of income we have, the demographics of the area, etc. So there was a map that was created that shows just how far that our market goes. So it stops like a wall at Liberty Road because of Douglasville and all the retail that it has, but it goes very far west, almost to the border of Alabama as our market. And lastly, we had to have a master plan or a strategic plan, which the city already did in the RSVP document that was passed back in 2016. I thought it was 18. I don't know why. And here's a map of the area. As you could see, the north side of the railroad tracks in the same area, that's the historic district, is designated. It actually goes, let me make sure I'm right about that. Yeah, the same area as the historic district on the north side. The south side will encompass not only the 2 blocks that we would like to designate historic, but a much wider area as well. So the tax incentives can be used for this purpose in those areas. The purpose behind the rural zone designation is to assist in revitalizing communities and incentivizing new businesses to come into downtown. So it's really a jobs program. It's incentivizing the creation of jobs and the maintaining of jobs, and by creating new jobs, investing in commercial properties, and restoring old buildings through preservation, downtown entrepreneurs unlock their job tax credits, investment tax credits, and rehab tax credits. So that's what this program will give someone if they want to operate a new business downtown or bring a business into downtown. And they can choose between these 3 different ones, or they could choose between them. They can also layer them with other tax credits that are available from the federal level, but not from the state level. That's important. So if they have a state historic preservation grant or tax credit, they can't layer that with this. They can only do that if it's a federal tax credit program for historic preservation. So, of course, the tax credit is not a dollar for dollar, or it is a dollar for dollar reduction of the income tax owed. It's not going to be cash in your pocket. So if your income tax liability is lower than what the grant amount is, you're not going to get that back in the form of a check or anything like that. And it only deducts total amount that you owe in taxes total, from state taxes, that is. All right, so assessing the job tax credit, there's a threshold of 2 jobs that must be created. And they have to be full-time jobs or full-time equivalent jobs. So there is a definition for full-time equivalent, which means an aggregate of employee hours worked totaling 40 hours per week. The equivalent of one full-time job is the equivalent of one full-time job. So it has to be 40 hours a week per job. And it's a $2,000 credit, of course, per new full-time equivalent job. The eligible businesses are in the NAICSC codes. So it's your typical retail, your typical restaurants, offices. They all, the typical stuff that you would find in a downtown, they all qualify for this. And it's not to exceed $40,000 credit per year. So that's a lot of jobs that could be created. And the credit can be taken for 5 years as long as the jobs are maintained. That's quite important. You can't just create the jobs. They can't be just seasonal jobs and then they go away and then you keep claiming the credit. This program wouldn't work like that. So here's an example. You've sat through these examples already. Yeah, no cheating. 2 sisters open a women's clothing boutique on the first floor of a building located within the boundaries of Nashville's rural zone. That is Nashville, Georgia. Yes. The 2 sisters worked 40 hours per week and hired 4 high school students who each worked 20 hours per week. So what would their tax credit be? So we'll go back here, you see, so it's 2 jobs is the threshold, but it's $2,000 credit per new full-time equivalent job per year. So let's see. So what is your tax credit? How many jobs have been created? They created 4 full-time equivalent jobs because it's 40 hours. You see that? So it's 40 hours. You're dividing 160 by the 40 hours. So 2 full-time jobs at 40 hours is 80, plus 4 part-time jobs at 20 hours, so that's 80, so that's 160 hours. And then you can layer them like that. You see that? So that's 4 jobs times the 2,000, 8,000, all the way to the maximum, which is 40,000. So the second type of tax credit is called an investment tax credit. So these are, as you can imagine, are geared towards investors. You can purchase, so of course investors are going to want to purchase property and they're going to want to renovate property and things like that. So it has to be the equivalent of 25% of the purchase price, but it's not to exceed $125,000. You must purchase after January 1st of 2020, obviously. And to claim this tax credit, the investment property must be within the designated rural zone district, and they must create a minimum of 2 full-time equivalent jobs. So after it's been purchased and there's been a creation or alteration of the building in some form, they can claim this tax credit if there's a job, like a business that moves into the building and hires people to work. And this also can be claimed for over 5 years and should be prorated equally over that time frame. So it's a little bit different than the last one. This one is actually being prorated. Sometimes it takes a while for a project to get underway. The tax credits can be claimed over 5 years, but businesses have up to a 7-year window for eligibility. So if I came in 2022, I wouldn't be shortchanged till it's 2 years. I would still get up to 5 years total. Another example. A local developer purchases a 2-story, 25,000 square foot building located within the Toccoa rural zone for $400,000. His plans are to renovate the entire building into 4 apartments on the first and second floors. What is the amount of his investment tax credit? Nope. So it's not showing the answer for some reason. Well, I know the answer. It's a trick question. It's actually none because he didn't create any jobs.
Oh, you do have, it's a package deal.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, one without the other. What now, let me ask you this, what if you created a job without finding the development, you just rented the property?
That's fine.
That's fine?
Yeah, that's
You still
totally
get
fine.
that one, but not the other. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So if I buy it and I'm renting it out to someone else, I can still claim the credit because I made that happen. I made it possible for a business to move in and claim a credit themselves too, which they can do that too. The landlord and the tenant can claim the credit. And we're going to see that in the next type of tax credit. But here's another example for you. Same scenario, but this time his plans are to renovate the second floor into 2 apartments, and the first floor will be leased out to a new law office with 2 full-time employees. So then what is the amount of his tax credit? Now keep in mind that it's a total of $400,000, but the maximum that he can claim is $125,000, right? 25%.
25%, so we get 100,000 plus the 2 employees would be 108.
25% of 400,000 is 100,000, and the developer's investment tax credit over 5 years, if 2 jobs are maintained, is going to be 20,000. Mm-hmm. I should have said, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So lastly, is the rehab tax credit, which is the equivalent of 30% of the qualified rehab costs, which includes labor and materials. And it's not to exceed $150,000. The credit should be prorated equally in 3 installments over 3 taxable years. So it's 3 years, not 5 years here, beginning with the taxable year in which the property is placed in service, and it can't be combined with other state tax credit programs. All right, so we have another example. A local developer purchases a 2-story, 25,000 square foot building located within the Toccoa rural zone. He spends $150,000 to renovate the second floor into 2 apartments and $150,000 to renovate the first floor and front facade. The first floor will be leased out to a new law office with 2 full-time employees. What is the amount of his rehab tax credit? So we'll go back a little bit so you could just see these numbers again. So 30% of the qualified cost not to exceed $150,000.
We get 150, so 30,000,
Mm-hmm. To renovate the second.
so it'd be 70,000.
There you go. Close enough.
Close enough.
All right. So what's pertinent to you guys would be the rehab standards, right? We don't want just anyone to just come in here and rehab a building, and it's not up to the standards that the city wants or needs. The goal is really to create not just jobs, but beautiful places that function correctly. So, and look aesthetically pleasing. So the state has its own standards that follow the Secretary of the Interior standards, the national standards for historic preservation. So it's pretty much covered anyway. So if we have a business, say Gabe's downtown wants to come in and make some changes to the exterior, even though that's not something that currently would go to the HPC, being that it's not designated yet, they would still need to follow these standards. They would apply for the rural zone program. We would hand them the list of standards that they have, which are here, a little too small to read, but they would still have to follow them. And these mirror, our design guidelines are mirrored after the Secretary of the Interior standards. So they're basically one and the same. However, it would not come to the HPC. That would change once the south side is designated, right? So those, at least for those 2 blocks. The rest of the area going down to Donridge Ford, beyond Donridge Ford actually, and back the other direction up East Montgomery, those areas would not come to the HPC because they're not proposed to be designated historic, and they haven't been designated historic. So they would follow these standards. Nope. You're up. Okay. I would have just kept on going.
I know. Ron's like, okay. So, by the way, guys, we don't expect you to remember all this. So if you want to go to downtownvillarica.com, I have a rule zone tab on my page, and it gives you all this information, the map, you know, claiming the credit, all that kind of stuff. This, again, this is a lightning round version of our presentation, but for future, if you guys need more information, you can go to downtownbillerica.com and access that as well. So claiming the credit, before you can claim the credit, a certified entity or certified investor must apply for a certification that the business location where jobs are being created or the investment has been made, including the rehabilitation credit, is located within is located currently in the designated rule zone, which we talked about earlier as a map. And we got really lucky with that, because when we were applying for it and going through the classes, you know, they were very specific that you keep your map. They didn't want you to go wide with it. And Ron and I were like, we have so much blight in this area we want to fix up. And they actually approved what we turned in, which we were surprised, were we not? We were surprised. So they gave us a lot of leeway there in our rule zone map. So the certification form includes the address and parcel number. Must verify the baseline number of jobs prior, so you have to kind of say, I'm going to hire, 2 people, as well as employment during the year for which credits are being claimed. So I'm your contact. So we handed out some, you guys have some handouts at your seat. And within that, there is a form that you would fill out and turn in to me. And so I'm the local contact for the rule zone. I do not approve the rule zone. I am the middleman. So once you guys turn in your applications, whoever that is, I would then turn that over to the DCA. And their contact is Tricia DePardo. And Tricia is the DCA certified public accountant, and she oversees all the applications. So she would be the one, along with her team, to say yes or no, right? I'm the middleman. I turned it in to them, and they ultimately approve it, okay? And that's their contact person. Cherie Bennett is, we met with her to begin with, and she oversees the actual program, her and Tricia together. And the actual application would go to Cherie, and Cherie, Tricia, and their group would ultimately approve it, okay? And if you had deeper questions that Ron and I are above our pay grade, you would contact Cherie. If you had a financial question, a tax question, you would contact Tricia. Does that make sense? So once you're approved, this is the next step. The credit can only be used against the Georgia income tax liability. So I think you have to be pretty current on your taxes, right, to qualify. The amount of the tax credits for a taxable year cannot exceed a certified entity or certified investor's state income tax liability. Unused income tax credit may be carried forward up to 10 years and applied against future income tax liability. As a general rule, the tear down of facilities with a rule zone will not be permitted to claim rehab credits. Does that make sense? Can't just come in and tear it down, right? So are these tax credits sellable or transferable? No. Can rehab tax credits be used to pay for a demo? Only in extenuating circumstances. So I'll give you an example. A certain, and I don't remember specifically the city, in South Georgia a couple of years ago suffered a severe hurricane, tornado. One of the two, I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm sorry. I feel like I need to talk to everybody. So they were given the exception, correct, because it was an act of God, not under their control. Certainly, they did not want their city to get destroyed, so they made exception for them, okay? But typically, no. You cannot combine the tax credits. However, the new jobs that are located within the rule zone, the business can decide whether to take the job tax credit or the rule zone tax credit. If the business cannot use all the tax credits, can it receive a refund? No. If the business number of employees fall below the required 2 full-time job, what happens? You will not be penalized for previous tax credit, but you will be ineligible to keep claiming the credits moving forward. So if you only have the full-time employees 2 years and you can't maintain that, you can't keep the credit. So here are some supporting tools that we use locally and also via the Department of Community Affairs. The Downtown Development Revolving Loan Fund. That is a program through the Department of Community Affairs. It provides gap financing to downtown entrepreneurs. It can be applied towards acquisition and renovation of historic property. So this is the breakdown of how it works. 50% traditional bank financing, 40% gap, 10% owner equity. The maximum loan amount is 40% of the total project costs, or $250,000. One reason a lot of folks like to use this is because your interest rate they're giving you is pretty low. So interest rate below market presently, and this was 19, right? So it was 3%. I'm not sure what it is now. The DDRLF for Main Street cities in good standing is 2%. They give you 15 years to repay it. Equity injection and commercial financing are normally required. No application fees or loan origination fees. I probably didn't say that right. Okay, so here's an example. So you guys have seen Toccoa a lot. You'll see Valdosta a lot. Those are the two main cities that have taken great advantage of the rural zone. So that's why they use them as an example quite a bit. Sir? I think they were in the original rural zone, which started in 17. Yes, as is Toccoa. Yes. Which means their local business owners and individual business owners and people that have come in and invested have taken advantage of that. And that's what we have to happen here. Well, and not only that, but also local business owners. It's a huge benefit to them, right? So this is a case study in Valdosta, the rehab of a 116-year-old building. They requested $250,000. Upon completion, second floor to be used as office space by borrower. First floor would be offered for rent. And this is your breakdown. That's a lot of money, right? So the Boost Grant is a grant that we offer for the Main Street program, and I will say when Ron and I first started doing this, there was no COVID, right? COVID did not exist. So what we've had to do since March is hold off on any grant programs the rest of the year, because that requires us to give money, and because Main Street right now is not operating for events and stuff like that, we've had to cancel everything. We're not bringing any money in. So last year was a great year because I was able to give away $19,000 in grants, excuse me. So that this year will not be the same because of COVID. Again, we're not bringing in money, but this is something that once, the economy picks back up and we're back to some sort of new normal, that we'll be able to offer again. But an example. So the Boost Grant is a $1,000 grant for interior of your building, okay? It provides grant money to small business owners and entrepreneurs in the Main Street service area. And if you go to downtownvillarica.com, there is a central business district map on the page, and that will give you an idea of kind of the area we're referring to. Downtown owners may apply for the grant funding quarterly. However, the committee reserves the right to award grants more or less frequently each calendar year. So the odds of the same business getting either a Boost Grant and an exterior improvement grant in the same year is not fair, right? We try to be fair of giving it out fairly to a different business, not the same business every time, okay? Grant awards are based on availability of funds. As I mentioned, COVID, a minimum grant of 100 and a maximum award of 1,000. We don't match that. So what we do is, for an example, Uppercut. We gave them money to, this is exterior improvement, but I'll give you an example. We gave them money to replace their awnings, and it was, $969. And we don't write the check to that business owner, or we write the check to the person who's actually doing the work, okay? Facade improvement, grant, that is exterior. Southern Homes and Land Realty is an example of an exterior improvement grant. We gave them money through the DDA to replace awnings, lighting, painting, all of that stuff. And you guys, I don't know if you've noticed the transformation of that building. It looks so much better. Okay, that's part of a facade grant. So that grant is done through the DDA. And that, again, goes towards helping rehab, revitalize certain buildings. It provides up to $5,000 in grants to finance exterior improvements to a property owner or tenant's commercial building that will be aesthetically pleasing and complementary to local design guidelines. And I believe that had to go through historic preservation, Mimsy, for them to approve the color of the paint, okay? Because you can't do neon green unless you guys have changed your standards, right? Correct. Right. The program is a reimbursement program and shall be administered on the first come, first served basis to the limit of availability of funds. So again, that's DDA CVB board money. If there's available funds and you go and apply for a facade, they would vote on that, yay or nay. Exterior Improvement Grant Program. This is designed to provide financial incentives, again, to preserve, restore, and rehabilitate the exterior features of buildings located within the Villa Rica Central Business District, which, again, that map is on downtownvillarica.com. Under the program, property owners or business owners within the Central Business District are eligible to apply for grants up to $2,500. Funding through the EIG program does not require a cash match, and that grant is also done through the Main Street office. This is another, Georgia Cities provides this loan fund. Again, it's to assist cities with efforts to really revitalize and enhance their downtown areas by serving as a partner and facilitator in funding capital projects in the form of a revolving loan. Currently, the foundation provides loans up to $250,000 with a usual repayment period of 10, not to exceed 15 years. Eligible projects include real estate acquisition, building rehabilitation, new construction, and green space and parks. Questions?
Inevitably, what we're trying to do is suck in investors, like what you said, kind of.
Well, not just investors, but
revitalize.
people that are already here, people that already own properties here.
Where do you see Villa Rica, like, in the next 2, 3, 4 years, 5 years after this? Like a Peter restaurant wrapped up in a nice little historic building?
Well, I mean, certainly the hope is to get rid of some of the blight.
Correct. And I'm with you there too. I think it's
Yep.
the same. But, are the guidelines of what, like, just have a bunch of restaurants or just have?
Certainly what we hear a lot, and we just, for instance, just got an ice cream shop. That was one of the main things we heard all the time. Coffee shop, another restaurant. Certainly those are.
Around in Valdosta and all this, they have, a plethora of different type businesses. I don't know if there's some kind of guideline that,
It's basically market studies based upon what is, we see, we're actually working with a company called Nextsite.
Is there a place where you're putting all this out that
Yes.
investors are gonna go?
So there's
"Whoa,
hot spots that say Villa Rica,
hey,
a pizza
green
place
lights
would
on."
kill it, yeah.
Good, that's
Yeah.
real good. 'Cause that, I see us like a little mini Carrollton. Downtown Carrollton, prime example. I think Villa Rica could be the same way.
And we need the local property owners to get involved and take advantage of this. They're gonna miss out on money if they don't, and we don't want anybody to miss out on any money, because you guys saw the numbers and how much money is.
Y'all give me some of that money, I'll be fine.
Sure. You guys have any more questions for Ron and I? And again, all this information is on downtownvillarica.com, the rules on map, as well as the Central Business District map for Main Street. We actually extended that a couple of years ago, so it actually now goes all the way down to where Evans is, at the red light there, where that little white house is, that's where actually it stops.
Basically, you're the world's own city.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Doug.
Thank you, guys.
I had learned more
Right.
the second time, but I thought that it was really important.
Well, one thing moving the second time.
And feel free to, email Ron and I with questions, and again, the questions that are kinda out of our scope,
Right. Thank you, Ms. Jen.
you're welcome.
Love it. That'd be exciting to see what
I think, for me, I never see something as its own little entity. I'm always looking at how things mesh together. And seeing this and knowing that part of that does pertain to us with the ordinances and what we're doing. So thank you, because you put a lot of time and effort into that. And believe me, in talking with Ron and looking at all the stuff that he has and all the other things that he's doing, and he's getting ready. There are so many really neat things going on.
That's probably exactly what Villa Rica needs.
Oh, listen, with what Main Street is doing,
Right.
with the trail, with downtown changing different things.
Yeah.
Right now, I've had the privilege of taking a look at some other ideas that are there, which also includes moving some of the, because one of our council members, Leslie McPherson, has been kind of pushing it as well, to move some of the utilities from the front to the back alley, which allows us to have this beautiful view of downtown Villa Rica, which I think is awesome. And to that is what I'm thinking, that even with HPC, there are some grants there that, even though it's not a whole lot, would maybe move some of this a lot faster. So, as I said, I see, as Janet knows, I'm a big puzzle person. And I like taking a look at all of them, putting them together to make it whole. Okay, Ron, are there any other reports of anybody? All right.
No.
Old business. You're
Okay. We have the up for tonight. If you remember from our last meeting, we had I gave an introduction to our pre-application for the South Villa Rica Commercial Historic District, and you were all looking it over. I gave you time to between that meeting and this meeting to look anything over. If there's any changes that may need to be made, you can you can always send those over to me. So I did, and also some additions as well, if there was anything you may have saw that was left out. So I did get some emails from Alan, from Dr. Mims, and from Sarah with some information. So I added most of the information. There's only like I think there was only one thing I could not add in, which was one of your pictures. The one.
The family.
Yeah, the family, because.
Irrelevant, probably. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I
Yeah.
hate to say it that way. Oh, that sounds awful, but yeah, it's kind of irrelevant, unfortunately. It's great to know the names.
I
and
threw it
have
in
the
there just in
names.
case. It's like throwing spaghetti at the wall. Hopefully it'll
I know
stick.
it, and that's okay. I like more rather than less.
Right.
Yeah, so that was great.
Right.
But that was the only. Now the other picture that you sent me was of E.T. Doyle's exterior in the 1950s.
Right.
Which was perfect because I had no other photo of E.T. Doyle's at all, historic-wise. I couldn't find one anywhere. So that was great. So I was able to add that in. It strengthens our application, and being that that's the only one that's on Wilson that will be designated. So it's only, if you see the map that we put in the packets, it's only the front section of Bankhead Highway and that one lot for E.T. Doyle's out the back. And that will make it a strong district, and it'll be much easier for us to get designated.
Now,
So
he has on his entryway a historical plaque, like the round oval plaques that we sent out.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's on some of the other buildings and stuff here
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
I don't know if that was already in some pre-commission somewhere, or
It was probably designated sometime, or that was probably in the last 20 years or so that they put it on the
Right.
building, but, I won't necessarily mention it.
right.
That there's been a change, but not that would matter too much. So tonight I'm before you because we need to now either approve or deny the request to send the pre-application to the state's historic preservation office. So what that would do and what would happen next is when we send it off to the state, they'll grant an opinion on this district, and if it's a strong or an eligible district, then they'll send me over the actual application, the national and state application to fill out, which would have all of that information in there, all the information that we included in the pre-application. I'd have to essentially regurgitate that again. Bring it back before the commission and in front of city council, and I'll actually have to go in front of city council twice. Once to ask permission to apply, and second to actually send the application to confirm the HPC's approval, or if it is approved, of course. If you guys once we get to that step.
How long is that process?
This will actually be my very first one in Georgia, because Georgia has a very specific, and to me at least, I think it's really unique process than other states. They lump their federal and state together. I've done federal before, and I've done state and New Jersey before, but not here. Here it's easier because they lump it all together. So if you get national, then they'll automatically give you state.
Oh, okay.
It's no second application that would have to be submitted. It's automatic.
And if you figure that when we were talking about the historic sites, just for local sites, that we actually started in December,
Right.
and then had January, and then February when mine came
So it's
to.
like a couple of months
And then it took us a
process.
couple of months to even get
We're
that,
not gonna
because we
know,
had all
like,
those
in the
public
next
hearings that were involved in that,
months,
so.
or next month or so.
Yeah, you're not looking at something that's gonna be done yesterday.
Yeah, there's after we send that state application on. That's just one part of the process.
Right.
The second part of the process.
I'd still be excited to see that.
Right, and as a part of that, though, as a part of sending that to the state, and then they send it off to Washington if it's approved. A part of that would be to make sure that we have 50% of the owners in the designated district have to agree to be a district. So if we don't meet the 50% threshold, then it's not going to happen. Luckily, we have a lot of the same. Most of these buildings are owned by the same people.
Right.
So we're really dealing with a small pool. However, there's also politics, I'm sure, involved as well. So we're going to double check ourselves.
Some of them will deem it as shooting themselves in the foot.
Well,
so to speak.
ultimately, it's going to fall on the businesses to comply.
Yeah.
So we're going to have to do the legwork, walk out there in the office. When I say we, I mean me. We'll have to walk across, walk down Bankhead, go into every store, introduce this to them as an idea, let them know what the public noticing is going to be.
We can help too, so I don't mind doing that as well.
You're right,
That
yeah.
would be great if I could get some.
I know a couple of people down there too, so.
That would be very helpful. If you know business owners down there, please let me know if we can all get together and walk down there. Whoever is available, that would be great.
I think that's a great idea, and yes, and there's several that I know as well. And for all of you who might belong to any other organizations in town, believe me, as I said, I happen to be a Lion. I'm also a past matron of Eastern Star, so you've got the Masonic
look like
Lodge.
a Lion.
You've got all these, anybody belongs to Kiwanis. If you have anything or any membership in any of these things where you can actually do some networking, that's probably our biggest thing to help us through the political walk through.
Right, it's extremely important to do so. If you recall from last year when we had the 10 sites designated, that was one of the main questions. They asked, do the people agree who own this property?
Right.
And all of that. Even though that wasn't required, that was my answer. That's not required for a local designation, only for state and national. And yeah, so I don't think that was the answer they were looking for.
No,
As a part of learning from mistakes, we're going to have to, and plus this being an entire district, not just scattered sites, it's going to be very important that we have buy-in from
You want
the
to ease them
owners.
into it, not force
and
it
from the
down their
renters.
throat. Correct.
Yeah.
That's right. Now that would take care of that one process. Now on the other hand, then we have the local designation that needs to be done as well. So, which is a totally separate thing, and that has its own process within his HPC's ordinance, as well as the state. So it's basically doing what we did with the 10 sites all over again, just for the district. And then if all of that is affirmatively approved, and then we have ourselves a district and we can start with applications at last.
I'm ready.
So
Ron,
this is
let me
going to
ask
be,
you,
this is the very beginning, and,
Right.
we still have a ways to go, but we're going.
I
Do
think
you-
that program that you talked about up here is probably gonna be the stimulus that
Yeah.
we need.
Yeah, well, we're hoping so. We haven't had, so far, from January until July, we haven't had any applications yet. We've given this
Well, with COVID,
presentation.
nobody's gonna be doing.
Right,
that's it.
exactly.
You'd be stupid as a business owner right now to open up a new business for any foot traffic.
Or expand in any way in
Mm,
square
Yes.
footage, yeah.
I mean,
Ron, let me ask you, when we're filling in this new one for the district, can we double up and also add other historic sites at the same time? I'm wondering if they would allow us to do that because it would be within that same area perhaps.
It would get very messy if it depends on where and I mean, we can always do multiple designations as separate actions and
Yeah.
still send it off, but they wouldn't have any relation to one another, though.
Okay. I figured it might, but I was just kind of hoping that at least the information that we have, we could use that same information in applying for those things. Perhaps.
We still can in the future.
Okay.
Absolutely. If we want to do an individual site, let's say it's forgive me, Butterballs, yes.
Yeah.
If it's Butterball site, we could still use it the same way, but it's going to be kind of hard to do so because their histories are not necessarily linked.
What about the water tower in Fullerville and the old city hall in Fullerville? Because those are also historic and older. And as we move to incorporate the other part, we have those, and including the African American Masonic Lodge needs to be there because that's right across the street from like Mountain Prospect and all of those buildings that already have a historical plaque on them. So we are looking at something that is important.
Yeah, and if there hasn't been any changes to those sites or minimal changes that could be documented, then they will be great candidates to be designated. That's why I'm concerned with Fullerville, because there has been changes to a lot of the buildings, but not all of them, of course. Like the City Hall building looks almost exactly the same as it did before. It hasn't even changed. I don't see any changes to it, honestly.
No.
But the factories or the textile mills have changed dramatically, and that was the heart of the community. So, entire district, it starts to get rough and go downhill from there. The houses have changed from their shiplap.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's this shiplap to vinyl siding or aluminum siding or what have you. So, we're gonna.
Yeah.
It gets dodgy. This already has come up. I don't know if I said that at the last meeting or not, but with the Georgia DOT and the bypass going around, I explained
Yeah.
this, and they have some reservations about our survey already, which we know. I did contact, or I did talk with Bobby, and he indicated to me that the survey, this was this morning, the survey that we have, the 2010 survey, we're of course going to have to redo it. We're in the middle of budget time right now, so now would be the time to have the money put aside to do a survey over, and we need to start talking about who is going to do the survey. Were we happy with West Georgia last time? Do we want West Georgia to do it again? And if not, then who is going to do it? It could be another college. It could be Georgia State. It could be. I'm sure the state has plenty of resources on this.
I understand from talking with Paul too that Three Rivers will obviously help and cover part
That's
of it.
what Bobby had said. He
Yeah.
said Three Rivers, contact them first. So
Because
that's what
they
I'll do.
obviously that they told us before that it would be almost no cost to do it. My problem with using, and no names involved, but sometimes I know after teaching graduate students that sometimes graduate students don't do a thorough job. And we already know from our last meeting when one of our council members said that she knew that there was a mistake because when they asked about the house she's living in, it was somebody said, oh, I think it was such and such, when actually the date was wrong. So we
And Sarah
have,
and I have talked about that quite a bit.
Yeah. So
the information that's wrong.
having, I would want to make sure that whoever does it does a thorough job and doesn't turn it over to graduate students or somebody who may or may not do a proper job.
Right.
It's too important for us.
So we're well on our way. So I'm looking for a vote tonight.
Yeah, do we have a motion to accept the approval of the Villa Rica Commercial HD pre-application?
I accept.
Okay, we have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? It is unanimous.
Okay.
Ron,
And just
thank
so
you
you'll know,
so much.
also, this pre-application does not have to go before the city council. It's going to be sent out next week.
Straight to.
Now, this is me reading between the lines here. The city council requires for applications to come before them, not pre-applications.
pre-application, right.
So I'm going to go ahead and rest my hat on that and send it off to the state. We're not asking for any grant money. We have to get moving on this, like, right away.
Right.
The longer that we wait, the more applications that we cannot review.
It's really important.
Yeah.
I want to throw in here, it's old business, but new business as well, before we get into any other discussion. I just got a note from our city clerk telling me that it was leaked out that there would be no more Taste of Villa Rica, but in actuality, we are having a virtual Taste of Villa Rica. And so when you're
do you
going
do
about
that?
talking to people, and political as well, this is how we plan on it working. Last year, we were able to sell, all of the members were able to sell them. We happen to have a PayPal account. And so we're going to put posters up in all the stores saying that they can buy virtual tickets. So they can go onto PayPal and buy X amount of tickets. They will have a receipt. There are people who are going to be going to the restaurants and other people who were part of Taste of Villa Rica to see if they would still be sponsors like they were before. And those who are, then the people who have bought tickets can use their virtual ticket part to go to the restaurants.
A little closer.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
sorry.
To go to the restaurants. What we are doing, actually, is that as a whole city, we are supporting our restaurants. We're helping to keep them in business because they could use these both as carry-out or for those that are open, and they will have an X amount of time to use them. So I think that it's important for all of us here to understand that HPC does have an investment in keeping Villa Rica viable and vibrant and workable. And so if anybody comes to you and says there is not going to be a Taste of Villa Rica, you can tell them, oh yes, there is. But it's virtual and it will work, and you'll be hearing more about it. But it's really important for them that we are supporting the businesses, which again is helpful when we're looking at all these historic places as well. Okay, is there anything else?
See you, Ms. Janet.
Thank you
Thank you,
so
Ms.
much
Janet.
for coming, Janet.
Okay,
Thank
new
you.
business, election of officers. Unfortunately, Renee said she was too busy and couldn't come tonight, and Kim is watching us on streaming video.
Hey, Kim.
Do we have, we can,
We have to, nomination, yeah.
forward?
We have,
We have enough to move?
yes,
forward?
we have a quorum.
We do.
Are there any nominations?
Well, I'd like to nominate Dr. Mims as chairwoman again.
I agree. I nominate as well. Yeah, whatever.
Are there any further nominations? All in favor, I guess? No. Thank you for your,
You do a great job. I don't think any of us could feel what you do, so.
Oh.
And the time that you put into this, I think is,
Well, I'd like to also nominate Alan White as vice chair.
man. Yeah, y'all have.
are there any other nominations?
I'm just here for history, like, I don't know any of this.
Hearing no other nominations, all in favor? Okay, congratulations. What I'd like to do for anybody watching streaming video, and I mentioned it to some of you, people come and they see us as a commission, but I don't know that they understand how well we mash together and what what all of us can bring as individuals to the whole commission. So, if you will tell us what your passion is and what your expertise is in bringing it to the commission. Sarah, we'll start with you.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I don't mean to interrupt. I just want to make sure I got it clear. Was there a second to that motion?
Yes.
Who was that by?
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, Sarah did.
Sarah seconds? Okay.
Yes. Okay.
What happened to Miss Renee? She didn't want
She said she's busy with work.
to, aren't we all?
Yeah.
No throw off on Renee.
Anyway.
She does work hard.
Yeah, Sarah. Tell us what your interest is and what you do so that people who are watching on streaming video understand how important you are to our commission.
History. Is this on? Yeah, history, and I've been with the Historical Society since it was founded in April of 2015 or 16, it's one of those. And we've been working on the Old Bethel Cemetery to preserve that, and we're preserving Hart House and the Marksman House, and helping with the Woods Tavern and the Reed Plantation House, and that's it.
Which is an awful lot because Sarah does have a good hold on not only the deeds and on her time spent at the county courthouse.
Oh, yeah, I'm writing my book on
Yes.
deeds. I
So-
forget, but it's been like 5 years now, so.
Because she knows the buildings, okay? David,
So my interest really in historical preservation stems from my passion for the old places, for the people and the stories that are attached to the old places that have all been before us. And I guess this really started in my renovation remodeling career, doing historical preservations on older homes, and just being fascinated by the way things were done versus the way that we were doing, in construction techniques and whatnot as we do them now, and the evolution of that throughout the last decades. And then also in my current real estate career, old places are becoming more and more hard to find. They're, that takes somebody with passion to go in there and remodel and restore them and preserve that history. And commissions like ours and societies as well. So it's really from those perspectives that I feel like I can enhance that interest in a positive way, come from contribution, and bring value to the Historical Preservation Commission.
thank you, David, yes.
Mine's the free food. No, I'm kidding.
You know where that is.
Yeah, no. I love, like everybody else, the architecture and the old buildings and the stuff that, God, I mean, it's also a brief window of what it was like back then. It gives you like a view of what life was kind of like, either good, bad, or indifferent. No AC, no indoor plumbing. You're like,
Right.
wow, man, how did y'all survive? I mean, sometimes when you look at those buildings and you just see, the facades, and to me it just it flips my trigger because I like the architecture.
And for those of you who don't know, Alan's house is on the corner of Spring Street and Thomas Dorsey.
Bring eggs.
And I used to be concerned because I thought it was going to be torn down. It was derelict. It was actually horrible. The door was always open. And I knew some of the history about what that building was. And all of a sudden, I happened to see paint. And I see a new roof on it. And we were needing somebody on the commission. And I just happened to be driving by, and he was outside, and I pulled into his driveway, and I said, you don't know me, but I'm part of Historic Preservation
This is
Commission,
crazy lady.
and we're looking for people to maybe apply to be a part of our meetings. And would you be interested? And he said, yes. And I said, good. You've got until tonight. You have to go online and contact the city
No
clerk
pressure.
and do it. So he actually applied that night because we were told that it had to go in so that we'd have time to vote on it and see if there were any people in there. So it was really kind of a strange thing. And if you haven't had a chance to see his house, you need to walk by. Even
Paint
at
now.
Halloween and Christmas time, it is awesome. And for me, well, I'm sorry that Kim is not here.
Yeah,
Kim
it
is the
is.
longest member of the commission and has a good walking history of downtown. Renee's parents were from here. She'd been back and forth, but she is the owner of a beauty salon, so unfortunately she's had customers that took her time tonight, so she couldn't get out to make it in time. My background is a big interest in history. I was raised with history. My own great-grandfather was a friend of Frank Lloyd Wright, so I've always been interested in that, and my travels overseas of being able to see gardens and to see buildings is really important. And because I have often said that I came from a town that was a Norman Rockwell town, but then it was destroyed, but it's apparently now coming back again, I think that it's important and for us to know how to sustain the uniqueness and viability of some of these small towns where we've grown up and lived in for so long. So that kind of gives you an idea of who we are and why we have, I continue to say, maybe a little biased, that we have probably the most comprehensive commission right now with a variety of people with different walks of life and different interests. But we come together and we do it well. And we also thank Ron for all of his pushing and doing it, because when I first met Ron, it was kind of like, we don't have a whole thing here, we don't have a whole quorum, we need to have something. And so Ron has helped also revitalize what we're doing.
Ron,
And
you're the heart of this.
he put a whole lot of work into it, yeah.
Yeah,
And we really appreciate that.
yeah.
And one more advertisement, you guys. You know, Katie, who works at City Hall, her dad makes awesome honey. The honey farmer's there, and I jokingly tell him it's my flowers that's adding to his honey. But I had the opportunity to have a bottle given to me by Wesley from Pine Mountain. Let me tell you, that, as I said, I told you, it was pure ambrosia. It is a whole different kind of honey. It is smooth. It is silky. It is absolutely awesome. And so, yes, honey has different properties and different things that you want to do with it. But we are really very fortunate here in Billerica to have two, actually three, different.
What do you put in your honey?
Yeah.
He puts something in your honey.
We have three different companies or people that can do that. So that's enough, something else that makes us awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, motion to adjourn.
our motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
How's your business? Is it? How's your business? You're doing pretty good. Busy like everybody. We're booked up a year and a half right now.